Jay here from Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio. You know what to do. That means it's live. That means you lot, yes, you need to get involved in the chat and the comments. We're going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news. Obviously, with a bit of an update over him. Yeah, him. The Glazer, one of the Glazers. I think that's Avram. Well, it says it there. It's Avram. Yeah, I always get confused, mixed up. It doesn't matter, does it? He's been quizzed in guitar. I think the Athletic sort of doorstepped him at the France game last night. So we'll get into that. We'll also have a little update on the Super League as well. And we'll probably get into some sort of transfer news at some point. But get involved in the chat and the comments and let us know what you think about all the latest Manchester United stories. Danny Inns is the first one. Morning, Jay. Morning, my friend. Nuri Man United says, lies, Glazers won't sell in March. I'll believe it until I see it. Well, we'll get into that and we'll tell you exactly what's happening with that. Dale Gibson says, morning, Jay. What's this? James Blonde says, throw him in jail for crimes against United fans. Mitesh Shawan says, morning. Nia Murphy, morning. Santa Notch is here, morning. Glenn F, morning. Jay. Right, let's start off with a Super League update because Sam Wallace tweeted, and I think Henry Winters tweeted about this morning. He says, Sam Willis, who writes for The Telegraph, he said, the Super League Rebel 3 of Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus, looking at the equivalent of a heavy first leg defeat to UEFA, judging by today's advice on their case to European Court of Justice. The European Court of Justice advice is that UEFA approval is needed for new competitions. That under EU law, UEFA can sanction clubs that lead breakaways and that UEFA's powers are appropriate and necessary. In football parlance, it's hard to see where Super League can take positives from this. It also goes on to say the European Court of Justice Advocate General advice expert on Super League case. This is what's been said. Football is characterised by an economic interdependence between the clubs, and therefore the financial success of a competition is primarily dependent on the degree of equality between the clubs. So it looks like, from what I can read there, by all means get involved in the comments and give us your take on that, that this is sort of closing the door on the Super League. It's saying you can't do this. You know, I think the idea was that they go to the European Court of Justice. European Court of Justice say, well, you know, it's not fair that you have to be in the Champions League or part of that. You can do your own thing. But as Sam Wallace is pointing out there, it looks like the European Court of Justice is saying, no. Like, for this to work, not the man then, for this to work, you all have to sort of, you know, have that dependence on each other, interdependence, as they say. So I don't see how the Super League progresses from here. Get involved. What do you think? Because we heard this a few weeks ago, didn't we? That it looked like the European Super League. You remember the furore that happened when United were gonna. We're gonna join it. Henry Winters also tweeted, he's put UEFA 1, European Super League 0. UEFA warmly welcomes today's unequivocal opinion recommending a ruling of the CGEU in support of our central mission to govern European football, protect the pyramid and develop the game across Europe. So yeah, he's backing up what Sam Wallace is already saying there. I mean, I think this isn't it's not done, but this is a recommendation. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But you remember when the European Super League was announced, everyone went mad, didn't they? United were going to be in it. I think of the English clubs, it was going to be United. Almost forgotten. United, Liverpool, City, Chelsea and Arsenal, I think, were the English clubs. I think those were the ones that agreed. You have Juve, you had Barcelona, you had, I think, Real Madrid and Atletico, I want to say. I've almost forgotten some of the clubs were involved. They tried to sort of sneak it in, didn't they? Like, there was no big announcement, there was no video, there was no interviews. It was just like this sort of, we're doing the European Super League. United I don't even think United put it on our Twitter. I think they just did a statement. And then fans went mad, not having it, could wreck football, could make sort of the league almost, not insignificant, because you can still obviously win it and that, but if you're not having the Champions League places, what does that mean for the league? Obviously, as well, not having certain clubs in the European Super League, not having Ajax, for example, then you're not getting all those teams, or some of those historic teams that you should have, and you should be able to go up against for the Super League. So it was really weird, the way they did that, and I'm surprised that they did it in such a fashion and thought they'd get away with it. I think they just underestimated the amount of anger there was towards the European Super League, and you saw the protests. I mean, you got to remember, for United, I think United fans did a really good job protesting that, because it wasn't just a Super League for United fans. This was just the latest in a long line of disgusting things the Glazers had done. since he took over at Manchester United. We'd had, at the time, I think it was 16 years, now it's 17 years, of just nonsense, of just saddling us over all this debt, of not developing the stadium, not developing the training ground, having a sort of just erratic approach to transfers and managers that made no sense and didn't help have success on the pitch. And then you saw this idea of, well, we're going to actually not have the Champions League anymore. We're going to have this European Super League, this American-style idea where you don't get promoted or relegated from a league. It's just you're always in it. The fans weren't having it, man. We really weren't having it. And, you know, I've seen a lot of anger towards the Glazers in my time as a United fan, going back to 2005 when they first, even before they took over, when it was first suggested they were going to take over. And I've not seen anything like that, what I saw that during that period when it looked like the Super League was going to happen. And, of course, you saw the Liverpool game. The Liverpool game where you had that big protest. We were down there as well. And the game got postponed. I can't remember a time when that ever happened before. And then before you knew it as well, you were getting the sort of like the domino effect. There was teams dropping out, weren't there? Teams saying they're not going to take part in the Super League anymore. And rightly so. It just seemed like a really stupid and crass idea, and one that didn't really take into consideration the fact that football should be there has to be an element of competition in it. Has to be an element of winning and losing, of, doing well and not doing well. If you take that away, you say it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, you're still going to win this competition. And also, listen, I love playing Barcelona. I think playing Barcelona is great. Some of the best games I've ever seen have been against Barcelona, and certainly in terms of the atmosphere and the sort of the importance of it. But if you're playing Barcelona every season, 2 times a season, if you're playing Arsenal, what would it have been, 4 times a season? It just gets a bit silly, doesn't it? Let us know what you think. Glenn F says, had a good day, Jay. Have a good day, Jay. David Thomas says, good afternoon. Santa Notch says, keep hearing it is not a sale. It is a process, and the process is proceeding. Morning, boss. See you later, says Andy Tate. Yeah, we're going to have catch up with Andy in a bit. Dale Gibson says, sounds like the dream's over for Real, Barca and Juve. Thankfully, I wonder when the news of Real's financial disaster class comes out. Yeah, that was the problem. I think there was a sort of a lot of these clubs, a lot of these owners were relying on this money because there wasn't the 3.5 billion on the table for everyone taking part. And I think that they looked at this and they thought, especially the clubs that were in a bit of financial trouble or that had overspent, or in United's case were in a lot of debt, this is a way for us to get a lot of money in quickly, regardless of how successful we are on the pitch. So it made sense for them, but not for the fans, and certainly not for the clubs themselves. It was weird because we spoke to, I think, to Semra Hunter just after it all popped off, when it was all sort of looked like it was, crumbling. And she was saying that actually, for certain Real Madrid fans, they were still backing it. They quite liked Florentino Perez, not all of them, but a lot of them. And she felt that he was still pushing it and that it could still have some legs. Now, though, further down the line, not happening. Whippet Master says, morning, Joe. I'm Jay, not Joe. Fat Four says, hi, Jay. What's the latest on the sale? I hope I haven't missed much of the show. No, we've just been talking about what we've been talking about. I forgot then. We've been talking about the Super League. A little bit of an update on the Super League. The Super League now, with this latest sort of, I think this is a recommendation from the European Court of Justice. It looks like the Super League is dead in the water. It looks like it's not going to happen, and rightly so, because it was a terrible idea. Should we talk about the sale of Manchester United? Because this is a story that's doing the rounds it's not doing the rounds. This has come from The Athletic. The Athletic, I think they spoke to Avram Glazer briefly at the World Cup semi-final in the Al Bayt Stadium in Qatar. They sort of, doorstepped him almost and said, can we have a word and ask you what's going on? Now, you can see from The Athletic's tweet there, the Rain Group. Now, the Rain Group are the ones who were, I think they were involved in the sale of Chelsea as well. They've been involved in the brokering the deal to sell Manchester United. It says, the Rain Group, an investment banking firm, is acting as United's exclusive financial advisor, which means it has a brief to get the best deal for the Glazers. Rain is aiming for a full sale in the first quarter of 2023 at a price between 6 billion and 7 billion. You can see a little bit more there. If you just scroll up a little bit, we can see, in terms of offers for Rain for Manchester United, serious talks are yet to materialise. Though those with means of surveying a decent pool of investors believe that it is because the price is being pitched too high. So it's not like we've got, it's all done, or the money's on the table or anything like that. There's obviously this sort of target of trying to get rid of the club, sell the club within the first quarter of 2023. 6 to 7 billion does seem a lot. It wasn't that long ago, United was being quoted around, what was it, 4 or 5 billion. So you've added another 2 billion onto that as well. In terms of what Avram Glazer had to say for himself when he was asked about the sale, he was asked for an update last night at the game, and he said it's not necessarily a sale, it's a process, and we're going forward with the process, so we'll see what happens. He was then asked how many interested parties there had been, and he said, I'm here really to watch the World Cup, but I appreciate your interest. Pushed for an update. He said, that's the update, it's the process, and the process is proceeding. Right, okay, thanks for processing those thoughts for us. Apparently the process is proceeding, so when the process has proceeded, then you'll know how the process has proceeded to a sale, hopefully. I think, I'm not too concerned there with the idea that it's not a sale. I think from everyone we've spoken to, we've had financial experts like Kieran Maguire on, everyone sort of points towards this is going to be a sale. It's not going to be them just selling some shares and keeping control. I hope not anyway, because the sooner we get rid of the Glazers, the better. Nick Sweeney says, joke of evaluation, I reckon 4 billion absolute tops. Jamie, when the Glazers sell, why do the new owners have to pay their debt? I get the debt for players being passed on, but the Glazers took the loan to buy the club. Why would the new owners pay? It's a good question. We spoke to Kieran Maguire, asked him about that, and he said it depends on the situation. You can go and check that video out on our channel. I think it was from a couple of weeks ago, and he spoke about that and look, how that could work, and a lot will depend on the banks and the new owners and how that's structured and all that sort of stuff. Jake Harvey says the process is proceeding and Avram's hair is receding. I can't really throw any stones in the follicle direction, but I will say I can't stand Avram Glazer or any of the Glazer lot. Why is it right as well? You never hear from some of these Glazers until it's dividend time. I thought there was like 2 or 3 Glazers. I thought there was Avram, Joel, and is it Brian? I don't know. And then you hear like the dividend time, and there's like Darcy and Robert and Bill and Bob and Trev and Duncan, and do you know what I mean? It's like, who are these people? Where have they come from? Do you know what I mean? Shanika Glazer, who the hell's that? Why is she collecting a dividend? I made that last one up. What's it? What have we got here? Jake Harvey says, Jay, I've left my honey extraction too late. Any advice on straining honey in -3 degrees centigrade? I can honestly say, Jake, I have got absolute no advice on extracting honey or on straining honey. Producer Callum, have you got any advice on straining honey? No. He says no. And I thought he would have because he's from Ipswich, which is obviously in the countryside. Sorry about that. Grupeet Jill says, yes, brother. Santa Nut says, Gary Glazer. There's no Garys anymore, isn't there? Gaz Drinkwater was always banging on about that. Apparently the name Gary is becoming extinct. Nobody is naming their name Gary anymore. Just a little aside. Let us know what you think about this. How confident are you that the Glazers will sell up sooner rather than later? The difference between Manchester United and Chelsea when it comes to the sale is Manchester United don't quite have the same level of urgency that Chelsea had. Chelsea's sale went through very quickly because it had to, because of the Roman Abramovich situation where the government was basically saying, you need to sell this, you can't, have this asset, you can no longer operate Chelsea Football Club because of your ties to Vladimir Putin and what's going on in Ukraine. So there was an urgency there where you go, right, we've got to get rid of it. We'll just put a link in as well to the Kieran Maguire video. So there was a sense of, right, quick, let's get this, you have to get this deal done. There was quite a lot of offers. I think there was about 200 offers or something stupid like that. But then, like, obviously Todd Burley, with his consortium were the successful ones. Jim Ratcliffe put in a bid, but I think he put a bid in past the deadline, and it was also less than what other people were offering, which made some people think he was just sort of testing the water and letting people know, I should say, that he was interested in buying a football club. He also gave an interview around that time, and he spoke about Manchester United, and he basically said Manchester United's not for sale. That's the reason he wasn't in for United. So now United is for sale. He's being linked heavily with taking over at Manchester United. So is it Amazon who were linked earlier this week? Amazon could be in for us. There was several stories saying that Amazon could buy Manchester United. We've also had Apple. I think Apple's been a bit more sort of less likely. When we spoke to Kieran Maguire, he even suggested Facebook or something like that could come in. And also you've got maybe one of the sovereign states, more than the states in the Middle East. We know that there's been heavy investment and purchases of clubs by the likes of the Saudis have bought Newcastle, Qataris I think own PSG, it's Abu Dhabi Group who own Manchester City. So maybe there's something there. I just want to see who these who puts the offers in, and then I'll start giving you my opinion on who the new owners will be. I don't have a problem with someone from one of the sovereign states buying a club. I wouldn't like a sovereign state to own us necessarily. And also, what I don't want to see is the new owners come in and do what the Glazers have done and just have us with more debt. And anyone who's interested in sort of massively, sort of continuing what we've seen over the last 70 years, I'd be against that. You want someone who's going to come in and understand the football club, understand what it means to the fans, have a desire to see Manchester United successful on the pitch. You remember Ed Woodward when it was like, what we do on the pitch doesn't affect us financially, or some other such nonsense that he said. That would be disappointing. Fat Thor says, Jay, you think this sale is a smokescreen? They are asking unrealistic double the valuation figures. Any update on that? That's a good point, but I think that when we've spoken to people and from what you look at, I think now would probably be their best time to sell to get the most money themselves. I think if they keep Manchester United, they're going to have to invest in a stadium. It needs redeveloping. They're going to have to invest in the training ground. There's still investments to be done in the team. There's still this debt that needs to be furnished as well. So maybe if they sold the club, they will get now more money than if they kept it, tried to do the things that needs to be done, and took the dividends they took. Was it last year where they took out a loan and still gave themselves a dividend? If you're under any misconception of just how horrific for Manchester United the Glazers have been, just look at that. Taking out a loan when the club's not turning a profit to give yourself a dividend, basically. Disgraceful behaviour. Yep. Glenn F says, so hope it's Ratcliffe. He'll understand what it means to us fans. Other people saying Dubai will be sick. Manchester back Dubai, says Bilal Ashraf. Yeah, we'll keep you posted when there are any updates on that. This hopefully can be done sooner rather than later. Don't forget as well. David Manish says, morning Jay, just joined the vid. What's the big news today? The big news today is that the Athletic spoke to Avram Glazer briefly in Qatar and asked him about a sale. There's also this article in the Athletic saying that the Rain Group, who are in charge of brokering the deal for Manchester United, want to get the deal done by the end of the first quarter of 2023. There's a link that I've just put in the chat for our event in Dublin. You can see it on your screens there. Stretford Paddock live in Dublin. We're doing a live event in Dublin on the 30th of December. Me, McCullough, Joe Smith, Stephen Alson and Brian McClare, United legend Brian McClare. We're going to be on stage chatting to you guys, chatting to each other, doing a live podcast. Come and get involved if you can in Dublin on the 30th of December. We'd love to see your support. Don't forget as well, hit that like button. David Harrington says, can't wait for the live event. Fire. Can't wait to see you, David, as well, and have a chat and have a catch-up with all you guys who've supported us. We do appreciate the support we've had on this channel massively. We took a gamble when we bought it a couple of years ago. The support has been fantastic. What about our presence for 12 days, Glenn F? Yeah, we're doing the 12 days of Paddock. I think it kicks off around... Can I get this right? No, I never do this, do I? There you go. Yeah. We're doing it around... I think it kicks off around Christmas Eve, and then it's for the following 12 days. You get a prize every day, and you also, at the end of it, it's you're in the prize draw, to win a prize every day. At the end of it, you get £500. The big winner gets £500. Hey, not too shabby that, is it, around Christmas time? Right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be back with David Scott later for Round Our Way. You're also going to have Uncensored this afternoon with Adam McCullough, Joe Smith. So make sure you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I've been Jay. This has been the Paper Talk live from the studio. Thanks for watching.